and welcome to the Canadian SME Small Business Podcast, the nexus for entrepreneurial spirit, where innovation and businesses grow. I'm your host, Maheen, and today we are delving into the world of small businesses, the powerhouse of dynamic economic development and community enrichment. In our midst is a very special guest today, Meghan Graham, Manager of Marketing Communications and Digital at CIRA, the Canadian Internet Registration Authority. Beyond its role as the custodian of the .ca domain, CIRA stands as a beacon for a secure and accessible internet space for all Canadians, representing Canada on various fronts and actively shaping the internet's future. With over a decade of experience in marketing communications within the nonprofit and tech industries, Meghan is a pivotal force in promoting .ca domain names throughout Canada. Today, she joins us to discuss the critical importance of establishing a solid online presence, moving beyond the confines of social media, and navigating the digital realm with confidence. So without further ado, let's dive into the conversation. Hi, Meghan. On behalf of Canadian SME, I'd like to welcome you to our Small Business Podcast. How are you today?
I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
Very well, thank you. And very pleased to have you with us this afternoon. Now, Meghan, today's discussion will be very solely upon the importance of, making an online presence in our digital, world today. Can you share how crucial is it for businesses and individuals to establish an online presence through a website, and what advantages does this hold over solely relying on social media platforms?
Yeah, it's a very great question. I would start off by saying that if you're a small business owner or an entrepreneur, or even if you have a side hustle, a website is a really crucial part of your business. And it's all about creating a digital presence online. We like to say at CIRA that there's many things that go into a digital toolkit, like your social media, your website, your online marketing, but your website is really your cornerstone piece that you want to make sure that you have as a small business. And it's interesting because there are still about a quarter of SMEs in Canada that do not have a website for their business, which is kind of a surprising fact. So it may seem like an obvious statement to say have a website, but it still is, I think, an important piece of education for small businesses out there. And really, I think some businesses do still rely on social media for the promotion and for their, online presence, like an Instagram account, for example. But the issue with that is that it's not your own space online. Mm-hmm. So really, we like to say that a website is your owned property. And with that, you can get a customized domain with your website. So that makes it a well-rounded experience for your brand, especially online. And if you just have a presence on Instagram, for example, not everybody is on Instagram, right? So you're missing potentially some of your customer base. And, as it may seem obvious that everybody's on social media these days, not everybody is. So I would say that to make sure that you are where your customers are anywhere online, it's important for you to have a website and a social media presence. And the other thing I would say is that, when you and I first become aware of a brand, one of the first things we're going to do is Google that brand, right? To see if they have a website. So it's ingrained in us to really think about a website when we think about a brand or a small business.
No, and to add to that, Meghan, how a dedicated website might enhance a brand or business's credibility and professionalism, especially when compared to just having profiles on platforms like Facebook or Instagram?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say first and foremost, having a website shows that you're a legitimate business, right? It really is that cornerstone piece. It's much more than, showing an about us page or, showing your contact information. It really is showing that you're a legitimate business and people can trust you when they search for you online. And the thing about social media platforms too is that, they're not controlled by you. So policies can change around them. The platform can change. And, that's not something that you can control. So a website is really something that you control. And these days it's super easy to set up a website, whether you're have a little bit of tech savviness. There's many do-it-yourself platforms out there that will actually help you get found on Google and other search platforms as well. So I think it's more easier than ever to really set up a website these days. And if you don't have time or you don't have interest, you can always hire somebody to do that, of course. But
Right.
So at the end of the day, it really is about controlling your digital identity online by having a website.
Right. And to reiterate what you mentioned before, we see many businesses utilizing social media to create their online presence. Megan, why is it essential to have a website as a central pillar of one's online identity? And how can social media be used effectively to support and drive traffic to their website?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say that, social media should be used as a marketing tool. So it shouldn't just be relied on to run your business, right? A website can really help you and your customers out, especially if you're an e-commerce business. It gives you those tools to really have a proper, sort of e-commerce setup online to sell products and services. And social media, I think, is a great complement to that because you can post, information about your brand, build your brand on social media, and then direct your customers to your website where that's, a trusted source of information and where they can, purchase products and services, that type of thing.
Right. Now, Megan, when an entrepreneur starts a website, the domain name and the extensions are very crucial decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Can you elaborate on their significance and the impact they have on branding and discoverability?
Yeah. So when you're setting up your business, one of the first things that you should think about is your domain name.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's, your website address essentially. And a domain name is as important as choosing your business name. So I would say the first thing you should think about after you set up your business is looking online to see if your domain is available. And, there are many different domain name extensions that you can choose from. And I'll give your listeners a little domain name 101. There's many different extensions like, for example, .ca, .com, .net, .org. So there's many different options out there, but something like a .ca is what's called a country code top-level domain. So there are top-level domains that are associated with countries all over the world. So .ca being associated with Canada. For example, .fr would be associated with France, or .au associated with Australia. So you can go with a country code top-level domain, or you can go with a more generic domain, which would be like .com, .org, .net. But it's important to understand that your domain name extension choice is actually a reflection of your brand as well, especially if you're Canadian, right? If you're a Canadian brand, a Canadian small business.
It also helps with identifying brands as if they're local or not, right?
Exactly.
The first thing I see is that, okay, I can trust them.
Yes,
and
exactly.
support them, in fact.
Yes.
Now, Megan, for Canadian entities, why might choosing a .ca domain be more beneficial or more relevant than other extensions?
Yes, that's a great question. And it's interesting you mentioned local.
Right.
So .ca, if you're a Canadian business and you serve Canadian customers, a .ca would be a great choice for you. We like to say that .ca is Canada's domain, and it's for Canadian businesses, Canadian entrepreneurs, side hustles. Even if you have an idea that, you'd like to start a photography business or something, make sure your .ca is available and register that. In terms of the benefits of a .ca, only Canadians can register it. So as a consumer, when I see a .ca website, I know right away that company is just charging in Canadian dollars.
Right.
So, if I'm looking to buy a pair of shoes, I want to visit a Canadian website to know that I'm not going to be paying extra costs and shipping or duties, that type of thing. So it's a signal to customers that it's a Canadian business. Something interesting you mentioned about local is that in the past couple of years, we've actually done research at CIRA that has told us that 85% of Canadians prefer to be on a .ca domain versus a .com domain when they're supporting local businesses. So it's, I think there's a big movement around supporting local in the past few years, and I don't think it's going anywhere. I think that people are really passionate about supporting local. So if you can, brand your organization or your company around that, I think choosing a .ca will really help that. The other thing that a .ca will help with, not to get too technical about, search engine optimization with your listeners, but a .ca can signal to people when they're searching on Google that your business has close proximity to you.
Correct.
So, for example, if I'm searching for a pizza shop close to me, a pizza shop with a .ca will show up much more relevant to me than a .com in, let's say, somewhere in the United States, right? So Google does show .cas as a country code top level domain for users when it's relevant to them. So so that's something that's also, especially if you're a hyper local business, that's something to consider as well.
Great insights there, Meghan. Meghan, now considering various strategies for selecting a domain name, such as using different acronyms, keywords, or location-specific terms, could you provide some insights and advice on crafting a domain name that's both memorable and creative?
So I'd say the first thing to consider is to align your domain name with your brand name. So let's say I started a business, a wellness business called Meditative Minds. I would want to make sure that meditativeminds.ca was the first thing that I looked for when I went to register a domain. So try to match it with your company name, your brand name. And if that's not available, I would say try to use keywords or location-based information. So if, let's say, meditativeminds.ca wasn't available, try meditativeminds.toronto.ca. And there's many different things you can use to signal, location information in the domain, keywords. But at the end of the day, I would say try to keep it as short as possible. Nobody likes a domain name that's super long to type out. And there's a lot of considerations when, understanding how long your domain name should be. It really should be between about 5 and 14 characters long to make it optimal for your customer and your user.
Now, from what we understand, Meghan, that the simplicity and the recall value of a domain name is what is very crucial. Now, when creating a second but an impactful domain name, what are the key considerations? And are there any potential challenges or pitfalls businesses should be aware of?
So first and foremost, keep it short, like I mentioned, and consider where your domain name is going to be, right? It's going to be, of course, in your web address online on your website, but it's also potentially going to be in marketing materials. So picture it on, brochures or flyers or business cards, or even if you have like a fleet of vehicles for your business, it's important to picture that name on those different marketing materials to make sure that it's legible, readable, it's understandable. And, there are some challenges, such as maybe your domain name isn't available, right? But the good thing about .ca domains is there's only about 3 million .ca domains registered in Canada right now versus many, many more .coms. So it's really, your chances of getting a .ca domain are much better than getting some other domain name extensions. And I would say too, things to avoid when choosing your .ca domain are, any special characters in the name, random numbers, dashes, that type of thing. Anything that's going to make it a little bit confusing for your customer or your user.
Now, Meghan, your expertise today have really shed light on the critical aspects of branding and digital identity. And we truly appreciate your presence here today at our show. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
That was a profoundly insightful discussion, and our audience now has a richer understanding of the digital landscape thanks to Meghan Graham. A huge thank you to Meghan for sharing her expertise and valuable perspectives with us today. And for those who wish to learn more about the pivotal role CIRA plays in managing the .ca domain and their work ensure a secure and accessible internet for all Canadians, please visit choose.ca. We also want to express our deep gratitude to our partners, RBC, our exclusive banking partner, UPS, our dedicated shipping partner, and Xero, our exclusive accounting software partner. Your support is instrumental in bringing these essential discussions to life for our entrepreneurial community. To our esteemed listeners, please subscribe to the Canadian SME Small Business Magazine for more insights, advice, and inspirational stories from the heart of Canada's entrepreneurial ecosystem. Your journey is our journey, and we're in this together, nurturing big dreams in the world of small businesses. Until next time, stay motivated, innovative, and most importantly, empowered.